Hi, my name is Laura and welcome to my channel Boundless Books. So today, rather than run through my normal TBR for the month of July, I thought I would run through my TBR for the rest of the year and into 2017. Because there are still a ton of books that haven't come out yet that I'm extremely excited to get my hands on. So if you're into YA, fantasy, and sci-fi like me, then I think you guys will really like this list that I've compiled. So let's get started. So the first book that I want to talk about is coming out in August and actually the book that caused me to compile this list. And that is Dance of Steel by Jordan Rivet. This book is the third book in the Steel and Fire series, which I just devoured over the past couple days. Like, I was up until 2 a.m. reading these books. They surprised me and I just could not put them down. So what's this series actually about? Well, it's a YA fantasy series that follows a young woman named Dara, who lives in a fantasy kingdom which is isolated and very peaceful, and she is the daughter of these magical wielding fireworkers. But unlike her parents, who are able to wield fire to create energy and these magical lanterns that power the town, Dara has no spark of magic. Instead, Dara is captivated by the world of dueling, and she's determined to find herself a patron so that she can become a professional duelist. So naturally, Dara is quite put out when her dueling instructor recruits her, very much against her will, to help out the Crown Prince in improving his fighting technique, because she is pretty much determined that he's an amateur and a waste of her time. I was really drawn in by the characters in this story. I thought the dynamic between Dara and the Crown Prince was hilarious, and the dialogue between them was just so enjoyable to read, and I especially appreciated Dara as a protagonist because she was extremely hardworking and down to earth, and I find that a lot of the female characters in YA books can be a little flighty or irrational, and I just really appreciated Dara's pragmatism and her, just go-to attitude. So I'm not going to go into too many specifics about the plot of the third book because I really don't want to give anything away. You definitely have to have read the first two books in this series, but hopefully I've enticed you enough with that brief description of the first book to get you interested about picking up this series and reading on to this next book. And you still have time because this book doesn't come out until the end of August. The next book on this list also comes out in August, and it is The Ghost Talkers by Mary Robinette Kowal. This book is also a fantasy novel, however, it is a historical fantasy novel and is actually set during World War I in London and follows an American heiress named Ginger. Ginger is engaged to an intelligence officer, but she also has a very important role to play in the war effort because she is a medium and she's in the Spirit Corps, a special spiritualist force. Because in the world of this novel, there are supernatural forces, which is 100% what has piqued my interest about this story. I was first introduced to this author after having read Shades of Milk and Honey, which is her take on the Jane Austen universe, but throwing in magic, which was really fun to read, especially as somebody who just adores Jane Austen. So I'm excited to see how she takes on the World War I subject matter. The next book on this list, which is also coming out in August, there are just a ton of interesting books coming out in August, is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. This book is the second book in the Ember and the Ashes series, which came out last year, and everyone was talking about it because it's sort of this sweeping YA fantasy series that's rooted in a lot of historical elements. The book follows two main characters, one who is a military darling in the Empire, and the other a slave fighting against the tyrannical rule of the Empire. The first book in the series laid the foundations of the main two characters, and they never really interacted too much, but at the end of the first book, they finally met, and now I think all the is gonna go down in the second book, and I'm very excited to see what happens. Moving on into September, the next book on this list is A Shadow Bright and Burning by Jessica Clueless. So I don't know too much about this author, she's completely new to me, but I was 100% hooked when I read the description of this book because it is set in Victorian London with elements of magic, which you guys, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that I'm absolutely obsessed with that time period. So this series follows a young woman who has the ability to burst into flames. Throughout her whole entire life, she's kept this ability secret. However, when it is discovered, rather than being imprisoned or persecuted, she is instead recruited into Her Majesty's Royal Society of Sorcerers. I really don't need to know too much more about this book. I am so excited. I'm gonna pick this up the second it comes out. September can't come fast enough. I'm getting married and I get this book. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You forgot. You're there too. Switching gears a little bit in the genre department, the next book on this list is actually a contemporary novel, which is not a genre that I read very often, but I was extremely intrigued by the description of this book. It comes out in October and it's called The Comet Seekers by Helen Sedgwick. So for all of you out there who say don't judge a book by its cover, I'm sorry, because what initially drew me to this book was how lovely and gorgeous the cover art is. It seems so magical, and I want to know way more about the story. So as far as I can tell from the blurb on the back of this book, the novel follows two protagonists, Rosen, who is an Irish astrophysicist, and Francois, who is a chef, who meet in Antarctica and their lives are changed forever. The novel loops back through their pasts to explain how they ended up in Antarctica meeting each other, and their lives are tied together by this comet that goes through the sky and that they can both see. So I'm not entirely sure how the whole comet thing is going to work out in the story, but it sounds incredibly original to me, and I'm excited to see how the author handles weaving that in throughout the story. The next book on this list is another book that comes out in October, and it is called Fear of Drowning Deep by Sarah Glen Marsh. So this is another book where I think the cover is really interesting. It's kind of creepy, and I've just been seeing it on a lot of my Goodread feeds, and I want to know more about it. It's set in 1913 on the Isle of Man and follows a young woman who is a witch's apprentice. Throughout Bridie Corkill's whole life, she has had a deep-seated fear of the sea, and this seems confirmed when one summer the body of a girl washes up on the shore. When more villagers start vanishing, Bridie turns to the island's witch for help. You guys know me, I love anything with a historical setting and magic, and typically I go for the more sword and sorcery style magic, but this involves witches, so I think it'll be a nice change of pace for me. And the last two books on this list actually come out in January 2017, but it's close enough, so I'm gonna include them anyway. First book in January that I want to talk about is Wayfarer by Alexandra Bracken, and this is the second and final book in the Passenger series. I did a full dedicated review of the book Passenger, which I will link to right over here, and you guys should definitely check that out if you're interested. But to give you guys a brief synopsis of what the book is about, it involves time travel. Etta is from the 21st century, and she is pulled dramatically back into the past where she meets Nicholas, another time traveler, and the two set out on a quest to find an object of great importance to both of their time-traveling families. So the first book was a little slow to get started, but by the end of it, I was completely hooked. So I think this next book is going to be a fun and very fast read, and I'm excited to reacquaint myself with the characters. And then the last book that I want to talk about is probably the one that I'm most excited about, and that is The Dark Days Pact by Alison Goodman, and this is the second book in the Lady Helen series. So there's no cover or description out for this book yet, but I am so excited about it that I actually created my own cover. So Alison Goodman, if you like it, you can have it. But needless to say, I am so excited to find out more about Lady Helen. But this book continues on the story of Lady Helen, who is a refined lady by day and demon hunter by night. The first book in this series was my inspiration for creating my favorite fantasy historical fiction edition. So if you guys haven't checked out that video, you definitely should. I talk about the first book and also a bunch of books in that genre. So if you like books set in Victorian or Regency or Edwardian London with elements of magic thrown in, definitely check out that video. So those are some of the books that I'm really looking forward to. I have way more on my list, but I didn't want this video to be a half an hour long. But never fear, I'll keep you guys updated as I hear about more exciting books on the horizon. So if you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you are new to my channel, please be sure to subscribe. And until next time, my name is Laura, and thank you guys so much for watching. Bye! Get it to land. You're so impressed. Ah! Oh. Ah!